Yep. Come on, really? Did you not like rom-coms?
It's been a long time since we watched a rom-com.
We're having very in-depth conversations to start off.
You don't
this
even
day.
know what you've been missing.
That's right. Have you got mail? Sleepless in Seattle? Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan movies? No. This is what we discussed before we come on the air.
Fever Pitch.
Of course, you watched Fever Pitch.
Yeah.
This is what we were discussing before we came on the air just moments ago for check-in. Game 70 for the Winnipeg Jets tonight. They are in Edmonton, the final game of this 3-game road trip. Jets looking to get back into the win column after a disappointing loss in Vancouver the other night.
So how many people you talk to, like, you had to talk them off the bridge after that one?
Yeah, there were a few.
So there's the common conversation was Connor Hellebuyck's too tired. He's playing too much. That's not fair. If you think, this is from my perspective anyways, remember it was 3-2 in the second period, and Kevin Lankinen makes that huge save on Mark Scheifele in close with his pad, and then Ehlers hits the crossbar about a minute later, and then Vancouver scores 2 goals 46 seconds apart to make it 5-2 and pretty much sums it up. I thought for the most part the Jets played a very good game and deserve a much better fate, certainly in the first period. The goal in the last minute of the first period kind of didn't help their cause a lot, but the fact that they've only given up 6 goals twice this year, I think we can let that one go away. For
sure. You want to see how they respond tonight. The last time that they played Edmonton was the first game of the season. Obviously, that was a very decisive
that game. The result in Vancouver was surprising. The 6-0 win in Edmonton
to start off the season was very surprising as well. But
it set the tone.
It did. So coming off of the loss, though, in Vancouver, Scott Arniel saying afterwards they gave up a lot more rush opportunities than they usually do, maybe being a little over aggressive. Then you look, Vancouver would have numbers and they got up the ice in a hurry. Dylan DeMello, who thankfully was able to come back without missing a shift.
That was kind of scary.
Very unlike our group. Move on to the next. They were first to pucks. They beat us back to the net. It's not a recipe for success for our group. It is something, as you mentioned, we have not seen from the team. So when you look at you look at it, if you are looking at it as a single game,
right,
then I think that this is a team that has been able to put bad losses, they've had few of them, or bad performances behind them. We know that they have spoken all season long about how they take this one game at a time. You move on to the next. You don't get too high, which we've certainly seen. You don't get too low either. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond tonight and against an Oilers team that we will set up over the next half hour, but they've got some changes to their lineup as well. So we'll deal with all of that over the next little bit.
Yeah, Oilers TV host Tony Brar will join us at 12:50 to discuss what's going on in Edmonton. There's a lot of stuff going on in Edmonton.
There is a lot of question marks surrounding their lineup. We'll talk about Leon Draisaitl. News out of an optional morning skate this morning for them was that Draisaitl is doubtful for tonight. They will be cautious with him, make sure he's healthy for the playoffs. So for right now, game to game is what they're saying. So what does that mean for their second line and who's going to center it? What's that going to do for it? We'll ask Tony and hopefully be able to get some insight going into this game because, as much as we always talk about Connor McDavid and rightfully so with the Oilers, I think this season you really have to talk about Leon Draisaitl, second in the league in points, just behind Nathan McKinnon. I was looking at it and I actually didn't even, for whatever reason, didn't realize that he had 101 points already.
Yeah.
You look at it, but he was one goal shy of 50. But he is the one, if you look at Draisaitl and you look at McDavid, when it comes to goals, it is Draisaitl that has really caused issues for the Winnipeg Jets in recent years. So perhaps a boost for the Jets that they won't be going up against one of the most dynamic scorers and one of the leading contenders for the Hart Trophy this year.
Yeah, and right up there with Connor Hellebuyck, also likely going to win the Rocket Richard Trophy for most goals. The NHL's got a sizable lead on Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. So, that, I mean, of course you want to see the game, you want to see Leon Draisaitl play, but from a Jets benefit, kind of fits into that department of, that's okay. I mean, you can play the next game if you want, but not this one.
Yeah. Morning skate is going on right now for the Jets. Obviously, Edmonton's an hour behind us right now. I think some of you watching might be in the Alberta region. I think someone is also joining us from Texas, which
I just saw that.
I see that.
Yeah.
And then someone also put out that it is barbecue season. And
Jeff Bose.
Oh, I am pumped for barbecue. Although I feel all year round should be barbecue season.
We can kind of just throw this out there too randomly. I heard this on one of the morning shows.
Yeah.
91.
Okay.
Joel.
Yeah.
One of the best.
One of the best. Yeah.
So they talked about their favorite season between fall and spring in Winnipeg. They had a great conversation about that one too. So you could throw that into the chat if you want. What do you prefer, fall or spring?
Yeah, there's lots of stuff. Now, we don't have an official question of the day, but we are going to update you not only on the Jets morning skate today, but then also talk a little bit about the GM meetings that have just wrapped up right now, some of the things that have come out of it, including that Gary Bettman is very adamant that the playoff structure is not going to change.
Right.
So one of the things that we would love to know is, how do you feel about that? Would you like to see? I like one better. Would you like to see the playoffs go back to a 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7 format? And we will discuss that in a moment.
So I know Elliot Friedman from Sportsnet's a big fan of changing that, and also maybe adding the play-in the way the NBA has done. So 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9. And so on and so forth, and how that comes in. That's another one that's been shut down multiple times by Commissioner Gary Bettman. I think what we have, and I'll go with this one, I'll play this side of the coin, is people have been asking for the rivalries to come back. And 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7 didn't really play into that. What you have now is more of an opportunity because of the 2-3 matchup in each division. That builds the rivalry. So certainly that helped the Battle of Alberta get back on track. Winnipeg has got a great rivalry going with Minnesota. They also have one with Nashville. Those have kind of tempered off a little bit. Yeah. Because they haven't played against each other in the playoffs a lot. But I will tell you right now, the Jets have faced Vegas now in the playoffs twice, and that has built the rivalry in that department. But I think what it has done, the 2 versus 3, is giving everybody that likely rivalry building especially from the opening round. And we're all hoping that it's Dallas and Colorado. Although Minnesota played a big role they won last night. Colorado did not. So let's just give you a quick look at the Western Conference standings. So there you go. Vancouver in that last playoff spot, tied with St. Louis. And they are, my vision is terrible. But anyways, Calgary and Utah fighting for the last playoff spot. So Minnesota's just 2 back of Colorado in the Central Division. They're sitting in that first wild card spot in the West. So Minnesota not out. We keep talking about Dallas, Colorado, but Minnesota's like, hold on a second, we're in the conversation as well. And they've done an incredible job fighting through some pretty big injuries this year to stay in that position to get in the top 3 in the Central. And they don't have Kirill Kaprizov for a big chunk of the season as well. So that is currently the situation in the Western Conference heading into action tonight, Thursday night in the NHL Thursday night. Yeah, 14 games on the schedule tonight. It's I think this and Saturday might be the 2 busiest days of the month of March for the league. When you look at the standings for it, so see, we were to switch to 1 to 8. Yeah. Now the Jets, if it started today, would still be playing Vancouver, so it doesn't really impact them, but it would for a lot of the other teams throughout. I can see both sides.
I mean, you know what? We always say it's a shame to see
travel too, right? Remember the travel was a big problem,
right? Too? So it's a shame to see Dallas, or if we go Dallas and Colorado, if you think that those will be the 2nd and 3rd teams. Hypothetically, if that was the case, you hate to see one of those teams go out in the first round just because of the level of hockey that you would see from those. So you hate to see that. But if Colorado doesn't get into that 3rd spot and they were the first wild card, they'd play Vegas. I mean, that's a tough one to see. I mean, obviously if you're a Jets fan, you'd love to see some of these teams take each other out along the way. But I think just from the quality of hockey that you see, you hate to see it. I kind of like the idea of going back to 1 and 8, but that's just me. Yeah. The Winnipeg Jets are on the ice right now. As I mentioned, they are an hour behind us. So we are looking at 11:39. The reports from Mitchell Clinton are that there are no changes for the Jets at morning skate from what we saw to start last game. So Niederreiter, Appleton back beside Adam Lowry.
Yeah, because Lowry went down to the 4th line with Tanev and Iafallo just to get something going.
Or you could say that Tanev and Iafallo went up with Lowry.
Well, you could also say that as well.
Depends.
Well,
it's all about perspective. Some of us take glass half full. Some of us take glass half empty.
All right. Well, I won't use the term down. I'll say move with. If you want to do that, if you want to play that game. That's how it's going.
So that is what, and doesn't look like any changes will be happening on the D pairings as well. Are you surprised that Scott Arniel went back to the lines that we saw him start with?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that because I just think going back to our earlier conversation, they did play, despite the final result, they played a pretty good game. And I think Scott Arniel even said, outside of the chances they were giving up, he liked the Mark Scheifele line. They generated lots. The second, the Nemestikov line had so many chances.
Right.
So I think don't want to mess with what you have just because of one loss. That looks like you're panicking. And that's something that they have not done all year long.
No, they haven't. It'll be interesting to see if that, look, as much as everyone loves Nino Niederreiter, Mason Appleton with it, I think that it is fair to say that both of them, you are looking for them to get going a little bit more than what we have seen. At the end of the day, they do still have to contribute a little bit more. You're looking for that in them. So I think that it'll be, I've got no issue with the lines going back to what they were before. I don't think it should be surprising. I just think that rightfully so, there is a little bit of attention on them, and it'll be interesting to see how things go tonight, how they are able to deal with this Oilers team that I would say is not as fast as what we saw last year, and whether Scott Arniel keeps his four lines together or if we see some movement. And I don't have an issue in a game seeing movement in lines. If some players are going, some are not. I think you make the adjustment to fit the situation. Yeah,
and Connor Hellebuyck will get the start again tonight. Just missed out. Well, didn't get his 40th win of the year. So he had 44 in 2017-18, franchise record. Only one other U.S. born goaltender, has had multiple 40-win seasons. That's Ryan Miller. So Connor Hellebuyck about to join some history when he gets that 40th win, hopefully sooner rather than later. Has had some success against the Oilers over his career. Not sure if Stuart Skinner is going tonight, but Stuart Skinner is 4-1-1 with a .267 and a .908 save percentage versus Winnipeg in his career. I've seen him stonewall the Jets on multiple occasions.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's one of the topics that came up in the chat right now from B. Henderson.
Yeah.
We did 1 versus 8 and it was okay. I want to see 1 versus 16 interconference matchups. You want travel headaches?
Yeah.
that one would be a travel disaster.
But I could see because this worked when they had 21 teams, and I know where you're coming from in this one.
Yeah.
They're trying to avoid the travel nightmares.
Could you imagine if you had Vancouver, Florida play each other on a best of 7?
Because then you're getting variety, and I get where you're coming from in that one, but I think this all ties into the trying to avoid what was in the Stanley Cup final last year, Edmonton and Florida, which was a lot of miles logged. That's why they had so many days in between, obviously, to make sure that everybody's had their travel day and then a day to skate as well. But I think where you're coming from, B. Henderson, is where you're getting more variety.
Which is what I think 1 versus 8 could provide.
Okay.
For it. That's my feeling.
Well, the big guy said no. So
that's right.
Whatever you want to come up with, we can all come up with all these ideas.
Yeah.
But as long as the boss says no.
Gary said no.
When Dad says no,
that's right.
Dad means no.
As mentioned, this is the second game of the season series between the Oilers and the Jets. The first one, game 1 of the season, it was the 6-0 Winnipeg win. They will play again on April the 13th here in Winnipeg. That is the second last game actually of the regular season for the Jets. So looking forward to that one. The Jets return home after this game here tonight, and they kick off their homestand with the Buffalo Sabres. It is an afternoon game, which you and I have previously discussed. We always love afternoon games.
Oh, the best.
There's also great energy. Plus, I always like that you're able to see a little bit more in terms, usually sometimes you see a little bit of a younger crowd because kids are able to come to the game. You don't have to worry about the late
beer sales won't be so high.
Well, it's true.
2:00 game on Sunday.
Yeah.
So you miss out on that department. But I think I agree with you. You see more kids in the stands, which is fantastic for atmosphere. And Buffalo coming to town for that one. It's an Eastern Conference flavor in this next upcoming homestand with Washington and New Jersey.
Yeah.
Was texting with Brendan Dillon. He's said a couple weeks ago, he says very excited about the return.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see him.
Yeah,
we're way too far down the road, but
one of our absolute favorites, and a fan favorite, obviously, as well. People will be very happy to be able to see him back and then give him some recognition too.
He deserves a video.
He does.
Yeah, long enough.
Well, and he was just such a great guy before it,
and a big part of the change of the culture in the dressing room as well. So,
yep, he was great. So Winnipeg has been held to 3 goals or less in 3 straight games versus the Pacific Division. We'll see whether or not that can change. Edmonton comes into this game having won their last 3 games against the Islanders, the Rangers, a huge game against Utah. That if you look at or listen to a lot of the Edmonton media, they will say that was one of their best performances of the entire season. You had everybody really firing. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had a huge game as well. Connor McDavid comes into this game with a 12-game point streak going on. But the Oilers have outscored their opponents 12-3 over the last 3 games. Here's something from McDavid that I don't know why. Again,
is there any end to
things
the
surprise me.
superlatives that you can from this guy?
This is the 12th time in his career that
Yeah.
he has had a streak of at least 12 games, a point streak.
It's mind-boggling.
7 times he's hit 13 games.
Yeah.
So, anyways, pretty incredible. But looking forward to this one. I think this should be a great challenge for the Jets, obviously, with the way that Edmonton has started to be playing. They are hoping that maybe they're finding their game a bit.
Oilers Jets games are traditionally very entertaining.
They are.
They are. And this is, I know there's the 1.0 days, and there's a lot of hurt feelings about that rivalry.
Heartbreak.
Yeah, heartbreak thrown in there as well. But I think, the 2.0 era,
Yeah.
these games have been tremendous. And you'll always go back to that playoff series, which unfortunately came in front of a empty building.
Yeah.
But
It came in front of
fantastic. It was us and the can.
us.
Remember the
Oh, right. Yeah. I don't remember what
all
it was.
Edmonton and I laughed all the time. And I can't even remember the company of the can, but there's that one guy dressed up in a mascot can that was just provided lots of entertainment for Edmonton and I. So there's nobody in the crowd, so we had to find something to entertain ourselves between whistles. So
that was
he was the best. That was the West.
As mentioned, Tony Brar is going to join us shortly from Edmonton Oilers to be able to help us set up this game tonight. Give us some of the lowdown on the Oilers.
There it is. Bud Seltzer. That's what it was.
Oh,
yes. Thank you.
You know what?
Thank you, B.
Of course,
Anderson.
you guys came through.
Yeah,
Appreciate
always.
that.
And that was fast too.
Glad
Seriously,
someone's memory.
every time he came up on the big screen, it came up on the big screen, I would lose my mind. But it's just that goes to show you how easy I am to entertain.
That's just. I feel like you've just put that on a tee for me, and I'm just gonna.
So why you hit it out of the park?
Nope.
Come on,
I'm not. It's a Thursday, and
Okay.
I am. No, I'm gonna let you be.
Are you going to come on the show on Sunday? Because it's a pretty tight turnaround.
It is a tight turnaround, so we'll have to.
We'll have a meeting.
We will have a meeting.
We'll have a meeting over that
GM
one.
meetings have wrapped up in Florida, Nordic. So here's a couple of the main points out of it. The CBA, everyone loves fucking bargaining talk.
How many lockouts have you covered in your lifetime?
God, how many now?
How many times are you at the airport?
How many times? I remember
Hotel.
lockout in the early 2000s, staking out. They were playing, so I was covering the Canucks, and there was a bunch of them that were practicing at a rink, North Shore Winter Club, and we weren't allowed on the property.
Mhm.
So we had to sneak. We tried sneaking on.
Yes.
And then we had to wait on the street afterwards and just try to stand in front of cars as players were leaving. Yeah, I've covered.
What about Ian
covered a
Mendes?
few of them.
Were you there for Big Bird in New York?
I
then?
was. Yeah.
Were you part of that? Because Mendes did this. He actually did a hit with Big Bird in the back.
Yeah, I didn't have Big Bird in any of my hits, but I spent a lot of time there. Formal negotiations expected to start first week of April. It expires September 2026. The great news is that with the
Look how nice they were each other at Four Nations face off.
So they're hoping that it goes quickly, quietly, and there's no interruptions. All-Star, there will be one next season, but the format might change.
Yeah.
I am all for that. Think I've been on record that I am not a huge fan of the All-Star game.
When you're there, it's fun.
I understand
tell you
for
right now,
that market,
yes.
I get it.
Yeah.
And for
It's
the
New York,
sponsors, I
Islanders.
understand.
Yeah.
But overall, not my favorite.
No, on television, it doesn't.
It just doesn't translate as much. It's like Pro Bowls. It's like any. Like
Well, when you're not a kid anymore, it's just not as fascinating.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Next
it's all
season,
about entertaining us.
specifically us.
Yeah.
Next season, the first game of the regular season will happen on October the 7th. Playoff format, as mentioned, will not be changing.
Mhm.
And with respect to the draft, this one really cuts to deep for JT here.
Yes.
This will be the first.
Dumb.
This will be the first.
The NFL draft is a great idea, but this is we're decentralizing. We're having everybody in their little
in their home
war
city.
rooms.
Top 50 players are going to go to LA,
Mhm.
and everyone will have a representative there. And so it will be different from years past. Maybe you'll be the representative. Although they say that you have to be able to deal potentially with technical issues that could come up, which makes me think that while we have much
the IT department here, that's not going to be.
they have a lot of we have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
if it's really our forte.
Yeah. If there's any issues, Chevy, we're here for you because we know how to cover all the issues because I have cropped up so many. I know how to deal with all of them now. So
yes. Some teams, though, according to Gary Bettman, although they voted for this to happen, some teams already appear to be a little bit hesitant. So what I understand, the gist will be, let's see how this one goes. If they need to adjust, if that's what the decision is afterwards, then so be it. But that will happen round 1 on June 27th.
This terrible idea. And it was 26-6 in favor of decentralizing the draft.
Yeah.
I guarantee you they're right back to the original format when they get back next year.
He probably has a few burner accounts going. That's the bet. All right. You're on.
I'll bet you that logo in the corner.
Bet you an apple fritter donut.
Okay, fine. Deal. All right.
Okay.
You know who has never eaten an apple fritter? Tony Brar. Not once. Because you can't have hair like apple fritters.
I had no idea that there was a direct correlation from the number of apple fritters you have to hair growth. By the way, I thought
he was going to go because you always post about being in the gym. Yeah. You're so active. No. He went straight to the hair.
Yeah. Because like Sara you can take the grease from the apple fritter and like streak your hair back like I have today, but not as fluffy as you got it going on today there, my friend. That's impossible.
I really appreciate it, but I want you guys to know, and if you guys know me on a personal level, which you two do, the only reason why I work out is so I can eat all the apple fritters that I can. Yes! That's the only reason.
Yeah. Oh. And the food on the plane. And
the food on the plane, yes, absolutely.
And the food around the dressing room and the food on the road is just like you can chunk up real fast. It's like the freshman 40 all over again. That's how
freshman 40.
I got so fat the first year I traveled full time with the Jets. So fat. My wife was doing fat checks when she would hug me. She'd wrap her arms around me and she'd go around the love handles and she was doing it subtly. I told Sarah all the time and she was dying when I told her. She'd give me the hug and she'd be like this. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm nothing. So I respect you for working out because the hug checks could happen anytime.
I will say my very first week on the job back in August of 2018, they said, Tony, welcome to the Never Hungry League. The NHL does not stand for the National Hockey League. It is the Never Hungry League.
And not hungry long. We can go on forever. Just like this.
Okay, I do want to ask you about tonight's game though, because I mean, I could discuss food. We've had a barbecue conversation a little bit earlier too, Tony. So we've got a real theme going on. But I do want to ask you about the Oilers lineup. I know it was an optional skate this morning. That Draisaitl is doubtful. Now, I was looking that at practice yesterday. McDavid wasn't on there. Hyman, Ekholm. Are you expecting those three at least to be able to play today?
Yeah, the expectation from head coach Chris Knoblauch this morning is that Leon Draisaitl was the only one that was considered a game time decision from those three. So we can expect Hyman, McDavid, Ekholm to be back in. Of course, Ekholm made his first appearance in the Oilers lineup after missing 6 games with a little bit of an illness and some injury. And then it's amazing what happens to the D-core when a guy like Ekholm comes in. And that was our first real glimpse of the Oilers D-core, something that we could see a little bit more longer term heading into the postseason here last game. So good news for the Oilers, but Draisaitl likely out. Listed as doubtful technically, but I don't think we're going to see number 29 here tonight.
Tony, they're coming within 1 win of the Stanley Cup last year. Obviously, there's going to be a Stanley Cup hangover. What has the recent struggles post Four Nations face-off been like for the Oilers? I know they've kind of got things back on track here again, but what's the struggles been like for the team?
You know, it's certainly been an up and down season all throughout. Even before the Four Nations break, I know the team wasn't necessarily happy with their play, satisfied with the sustained level of play that they've had in recent stretches. But to me, Jamie and Sarah, this is a team that is the oldest team in the NHL. They know when to turn it on. And I think right now, what we're seeing right now is a group kind of coming together and cultivating what they're capable of. Right now, we're seeing a lot more attention to detail on the back end. And I also do feel like there's an element of experimentation from Chris Knoblauch as well. You can see even during winning stretches, he was still kind of changing up the formula and changing up the lines here and there because he wants to see what he has access to. He wants to know what he can go to in certain situations against top caliber teams, especially in the last 14 games or so now heading into the playoffs, because you need to know what works for you and you need to know what doesn't work for you. What are the pairings that you can go with and what are the trios that you can't go with? So I feel like it's this whole season, I feel, since that game 7 of the Stanley Cup final, I feel like it's been a feeling out process for this entire group, which is something crazy to say because we didn't see a lot of turnover in terms of the roster from last season. However, what I am seeing is this team willing to change it up even when the team is doing well, just because they have the long-term picture in hand right now. So they're playing a lot better. 3 straight wins, of course, that obviously helps. But it's the matter that they are winning these games. Something that's allowed them to find success in the past is the PK. As much as there is offense and offensive weapons on this team, believe it or not, their success goes through their defensive play and on the PK. Look at that Stanley Cup playoff run last year. That PK was unbelievable down the stretch. You could not score on that 4-man unit, let alone they'll be creating chances the other way, right? And even during the 16-game win season last year, win streak last season, and then you look at the couple of hot stretches they've had, it was always the defensive play and the PK that were up to par. So that's been the primary ingredient that the Oilers need to kind of keep figuring it out here. But as they kind of keep doing that, they're starting to find their balance through the season.
So with no Draisaitl, though, tonight, who do you look to then, Tony, that's going to need to step up a bit? And do you expect there to be hard line matches? Is that something that you see from Knoblauch?
Definitely. It's going to be very interesting to see what Chris Knoblauch decides to deploy here. But the good thing for the Oilers head coach is that third line with Nugent Hopkins, Podkolzin, and Arvidsson, they started getting hot at the right time right now. So we could probably see that trio elevate in the lineup. They'll probably assume that second line spot behind McDavid, Skinner, and Hyman, which those 3 are confirmed to play tonight. So Chris Knoblauch was asked about the lineup, but he did confirm that Skinner, McDavid, and Hyman will make up that top line. Then we can expect that Nugent Hopkins line. I'm expecting that third line that we saw, or I guess those 3 players from the third line we saw last year in Janmark, Brown, and Henrique to step up a little bit more. This is a perfect game for them to step on because of all the waves and all the depth that's coming at you from the Winnipeg Jets. That's exactly what those 3 players might be seeing in the playoffs onward as well. So a good test for them. Really need the Oilers bottom 6 here to step up for Chris Knoblauch, especially if the Nugent Hopkins lines picks up right where they left off.
Buddy, last one before we let you go. It's crazy how much the narrative has changed for both teams as compared to the first game of the year, right? Like how
it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, it really is. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Jamie.
No. I'm glad you did at that point. And then last one, seriously, has Chris Knoblauch's facial expression ever changed in the whole time that he's been the head coach? Did I cover that guy when he was a Kootenay Ice in the Western Hockey League? I have his face is exactly the same all the time. You can't even tell when he's mad or anything like that. So he's got to be the most calm guy I've ever seen in my life.
Not only is he the most stoic man, but I think he's defying aging. He's somehow gotten younger since he arrived here in Edmonton. Like literally, you know what it is? He's probably stayed away from all the apple fritters.
Yeah,
that's probably what he's doing.
It is totally
that's
key.
probably the bad thing.
We have found the key to life, Tony. No apple fritters. None.
But you know what? Going back to that top point, what a change in terms of the expectations from opening night on October 9th to now.
Yes.
That's probably the one time we saw Chris Knoblauch maybe look a little dumbfounded in terms of having no answers, because it was obviously a 6-0 drumming on opening night. We weren't sure what to expect from the Winnipeg Jets, let alone being the best team in the National Hockey League on March 20th. And for the Edmonton Oilers, everyone knew the storylines coming in. Stanley Cup favorites. They kind of bolstered their lineup with the additions of Skinner and Arvidsson. Then you have that 6-0 loss, which started a 3-game losing streak for the Oilers to begin the year. And then it's been up and down for Edmonton. Meanwhile, the Jets, they're coasting. They're playing so well defensively in front of Connor Hellebuyck. Yes, Connor Hellebuyck is the MVP favorite. Yes, Connor Hellebuyck will win the Vezina Trophy. But that should not take away from the work in front of Connor Hellebuyck. I feel like this team right now is playing with so much synergy, and that's a big reason why they're looking to become the first 100-point team in the NHL this season. So when it comes to expectations, of course, they only matter for a few moments.
Yeah.
It's only results that kind of garner everything else. Right now, the Winnipeg Jets, they deserve all the praise in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Brar has just been hired by Jets TV. We'll bring him in next week. There's been a trade. There's been a trade.
Well, bye, Jamie.
Tony, I got to deal with my co-host here. So.
Hey Jamie, Dory, I'm coming with draft picks, which means you're more valuable than me. Okay?
Right.
You're
Exactly.
more valuable.
I'm sure Paige disrespects you the same way Sarah disrespects me on a daily basis, and everyone always sides with Sarah because she's the local girl. So
I love it. Thanks for having me on, guys. You guys are the best.
All the best.
Thanks
Enjoy
so
the game
much,
tonight, bud.
See you soon.
Hey, let's have fun. All Canadian heavyweight matchup. Here we go. Let's have some fun.
Let's go. Thanks so
Take
much,
care,
Tony.
guys.
See you, buddy. Tony Brar joining us quickly.
Such a great guy. He did mention that the Jets could hit 100 points if they get the win tonight. That would make them the first team.
Washington's playing tonight too, so we have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, which game? Well, their game would probably end first. So, but they still could.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
On paper, at this time, could be the first team to hit 100 points.
That's right. So Jets 47-18-4, trying to bounce back after that loss in Vancouver the other night, which was 6-2. Edmonton coming in, having won their last 3 games, outscoring opponents 12-3 in the process. The Oilers 21-11-2 on home ice. And while we wrap things up here, just a quick note, in case you missed it off the top, when it comes to the lines and pairings for the Winnipeg Jets, it is the same as how last game started in Vancouver. We had seen movement in that game against Vancouver with the 3rd and 4th lines. But no, it goes back to how he started Connor Hellebuck with the start. As for the Oilers, it was an optional skate, but as we talked about with Tony, no Leon Draisaitl, officially said to be doubtful, but Tony says, nope, not going to happen, which is good news for the Jets because we know.
And we'll hold him to it if he comes.
That's right.
If there's 29 on the ice. There's going to be hell to pay when we talk to Tony next time.
Because as much as you look at the job that Connor McDavid always does, as usual, 12-game point streak, Nugent Hopkins, as he mentioned, had a great game the other night against Utah as well and has got things going. Leon Draisaitl has really set the way for this team this season. He has been their most consistent player, is sitting with over 100 points, but they are being very cautious with him. It's, of course, all about the postseason. But before that, we still got some games to go, including a great one tonight.
Just want the playoffs to start.
I know, me too.
Yeah.
But looking forward to this one. Always love an all-Canadian matchup. And hope that you all enjoy it, and we will get you ready on. Oh, yes, there was one more note I wanted to say because we hadn't talked about this before. So pull this up because I did. So for those of you that maybe haven't heard that the Winnipeg Jets in True North are celebrating women in sport, and they're putting out a scholarship this year open to women who are making a difference in the world of sport. You look at the application deadline on there, March 31st. It is a $2,500 scholarship. It is for going to a woman pursuing post-secondary education who has made a meaningful impact in sports and her community. I just think there's so many that we're always looking for different scholarships, different ways to help out with post-secondary education. We know how expensive it can be. You're going through that right now with your son, but this is a deadline for March 31st. Wanted to encourage people, get that out there so that more people know about it. If you are someone that this would apply to, or you know someone, perhaps friends or family, make sure that you go to winnipegjets.com/scholarship for more information.
I feel like you've done that before. That was well done.
Thank you. Keep me around for another game.
I'm seriously trading for something.
That's fine.
Just after that comment you made earlier. All right.
We appreciate all of you. Great to see so many of you in the chat as well. Hope that you'll join us as always on every Winnipeg Jets game day. And the next one comes Sunday against the Buffalo Sabres.
So I promise, like Edmonton, Winnipeg, always good.
Yes.
So tune in tonight, TSN and 680 CJOB.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks so much for checking in.